Welcome to the J-Bay Open, stop number 6 on the Samsung Galaxy Championship Tour. On the show, we'll talk about the amazing career of Josh Kerr, who's got a big matchup with the greatest of all time, and take a look at an old final. One of our favorites, Ross Williams, in a final against a wild card named Joel Parkinson back in the late 90s. We'll talk about the greatness of the greatest surfer of all time, Kelly Slater. Will he win again? That's coming up on the show. Good morning and welcome to South Africa here early Thursday morning as you're watching Dawn Patrol as we wait for the official call to see if we will get underway. A couple of fun lines and the free surfers are enjoying the lineup before we get to that quarterfinal matchup with Josh Kerr taking on Kelly Slater, which has been on deck for a few days now. Joe Trappell alongside a couple of legends of the sport. Ross Williams, former finalist at Jeffreys Bay, part of the Momentum generation, the Taylor Steele videos, and from the Lost videos on the other end of the panel, Strider Raspberry Wazalewski. These guys have seen a lot of each other over the years and now thinking about breaking down the world's best at this famous right-hand point break. Fun surf yesterday, Ross, up at the top of the point.
Yeah, up at Boneyards there was definitely some fun waves. Head high, so even on a day when a Aquinas is called off Strider, we still get to get wet and give it a little wiggle.
Yeah, it's a little spooky sometimes. You're just sitting out there just waiting. We got a couple waves.
Couple of waves. We've seen some of the world's best and talked to them. There's a lot to do in South Africa to go check out the sites, take pictures of your favorite animals. So everyone's staying busy and not getting too antsy thinking about a finals day, Ross.
Yeah, I think so. And we've had a lot of lay days since we've been here, so everyone's kind of breaking into different routines. But the top 5 or the big 5, it's hard to avoid that. Looking at, going for all the safaris, and some people are like us, been eating a lot of food, enjoying the coffee.
Oh yeah, just thinking about some special times here in Jeffreys Bay because we've had a lot of time to think about it. Going back to the late 90s, one of our favorite eras. When we go back to 99, remember a final here at Jeffreys Bay. There's a kid that was getting a wild card opportunity. Now he's a world champion. His name's Joel Parkinson, and matching up in the final was this man, Ross Williams. Ross, you had some key heats along the way, taking down guys like Mick Lowe, Nathan Webster, and probably some of your more favorite memories, Shane Dorian, because you had a classic rivalry there. What was your favorite heat at that contest?
Honestly, I wish I had a better memory because it's all faded away now. It's moons ago, but definitely me and Shane had a fun rivalry. Anytime we had a heat against each other, all our buddies would line up and watch it because they knew that we absolutely despised losing against each other. So I think out of that entire event, that was probably my favorite heat, just taking out Shano, even though it was only him like round 2 or something like that.
Also got past Pat O'Connell and the defending champ Munga Berry. There's huge heats there. Strider, what's it like watching footage like this?
It's awesome. I mean, just see, look at Ross, just he's, in the final. It's pretty amazing to make a final here. It's a pressure cooker. Ross was talking about this morning. You're out there, everybody's watching. It's right on top of you. You've got no choice but to, you've got to show up and perform. And it's definitely one of those pressure cooker situations where there's just all eyes on you.
Always fun looking back, and some familiar faces as well. Auntie Sharon, still a huge part of this event today, like she was at the very first contest here at Jeffreys Bay. We'll get more on that in a moment, but it's time for the official call to see if we'll get quarter 2 in the lineup. Say good morning to Rosie Hodge with our commissioner, Kieran Perrell.
Good morning, and I'm proud of you, Ross. You're still surfing better than ever. And Kieran, there are a few more lines in the lineup. That Devil wind is a little bit on it. Will we get competition underway?
Yeah, it's an interesting morning. The swell definitely came up, which is nice to see. That little bit longer period energy. You can see some decent surfable waves out there, but Devil wind, like you said, blowing straight up the wave, making it really challenging, especially when the size is not quite there. So we won't run any heats today again. Wind is supposed to lighten off through the day, but swell is also dropping. So we'll come back tomorrow, and we're still looking at that swell, hopefully building through the day tomorrow. If not offering anything then Saturday morning should be a good finish.
I like it. Another lay day to go for a surf, a plate of cheeses, maybe see some elephants. Back to you, Joe.
A lot of great options, Rosie. We always ask the locals what to do, and Rosie's been showing us a great time here in South Africa. Quick call for KP. It's off once again. We're hoping that we're getting closer to a potential finals day. Looking at the next couple of days in the forecast, maybe we'll have our shot. I know for you, Ross, those conditions in your final, you were hoping it was going to be classic. Could it be similar to what you had to deal with in the late 90s?
Yeah, it's true. You know, there's a lot of wind in this region, so a lot of times a lot of wind straight offshore comes with a big swell. But right now we got that kind of westerly flow, northwesterly flow today, and the air is pretty warm, Strider. Usually that's an indication of the surf being kind of on the small side.
Yeah, but I think what we're going to see for the Friday afternoon and Saturday, we're going to see straight offshore winds, and we're going to see overhead surf. It looks really promising, the forecast, with a nice bump up through Friday afternoon into Saturday morning. Pretty much all day Saturday is going to be fun. So we're going to have, I think we're going to finish off with some classic J-Bay conditions, beautiful open walls, and straight offshore, up into the bowl. I think the rail is just going to be engaged, and you can see it right there all the way through Saturday, 4 to 5 foot surf. I think maybe even a little bit bigger than that. As we looked at the forecast, the long range this morning, so I'm excited. Looking forward to it. So once again, day off today, but we're getting very close to crowning a champion at the J-Bay Open. And that first heat, once again, Josh Kerr versus Kelly Slater. We'll take a quick break and we'll look at an in-depth profile of the Australian with a big heat to come.
You got soul, you got power, baby. Life is love, love is soul, and soul is power. Soul, power, soul, power, baby.
I grew up probably like 5 minutes south of Coolangatta, a place called Benora Point with the family, and my dad was an avid surfer and windsurfer as well, and beach lifestyle, Gold Coast is amazing growing up.
I grew up just up the road, like 2 hours up in Australia. I used to see Kersey a fair bit when I was younger, and he was kind of on a different path. He didn't really do that many comps.
The air shows came about when I was 16, and I remember I'd done maybe 1 pro junior before that, and then I did this air show. I made the final and I made $2 grand, and I was just like, are you kidding me? I'm like 16, made $2 grand. This is it. That's all I'm doing. I didn't even touch a pro junior, any other normal contest.
He was never in the Gold Coast team or the Queensland team. Kersey just came on a bit later because he was chasing the air shows.
In my mind, I was never going to go to any conventional route. I barely even knew who was on tour. I didn't really follow the tour.
Won everything there was to win in the air shows, so he was like, I'm going to go chase the world tour now.
Everything had moved really quickly from like 20, I did my first QSs to get in top 50, met my wife, proposed at 21. At 22, I qualified, had my daughter, got married. Then the next year I was on tour and had a baby like 2 weeks before the first event started, and it was go time, and I was very confident.
He went from just this airshow guy to now being able to do it in heat and get really good scores for it.
Here goes Josh Kerr. Looks to take to the air on the end section.
Josh just ripped the lid off this thing.
The place that I live now in San Diego, North County, it's a really cool area and a great place to bring up a family. My friends call the break out front Kersey Shore, so it's pretty hilarious.
Josh was just always surfing out there, always like kayaking, longboarding, like whatever had floated, he was bringing it out there. He's just like the eternal Grom.
He's probably one of the most unique parents I've come across, for sure.
My daughter's, she's a classic. She's like my best friend. We have such a good time. She's just a fun little rat to be around. I've always been drawn to bigger hollow waves. Especially now living in California, there's actually a lot more access to some bigger wave spots. Down in Mexico, Northern California and stuff.
Well, he's always been nuts. When the waves got big, Kersey would always charge.
I mean, everyone knows that he's been crazy. I don't know if they knew it crazy enough to win a big wave event.
He just has a lot of like natural ability to do everything, and he really likes it.
I love surfing, whatever it be, whether you're on a 5.5 fish or like a 10.0 rhino chaser. I just enjoy being in the water. I'm so fortunate to be living the life I get. I got to take advantage of every moment.
What a great look at an amazing career of Josh Kerr. You can check out more profiles on worldsurfleague.com/profiles and follow all the top 34 to see their backstory, and that's what makes it so fun. Everyone comes from a different part of the world. They've had a different route to take to get onto the top 34, and maybe Josh Kerr is the most creative. I mean, this year he won a big wave tour event at Todos Santos. Just add another great thing to his resume, and we went down there to Mexico to watch that perform. Strider, were you aware of how hard this guy charges in heavy waves?
Only because Peter Mel was telling me, there was that day before the Eddy a few years ago that, he really got some of the craziest waves, and he was so psyched and so pumped and so far inside everybody, just whipping it, and Pete Mel pointed it out. So then when we got there, I was just waiting to see it, and then we got to see it, obviously.
And then when you look at the championship tour, hollow conditions and heavy water spots have been some of his great events. He's runner-up at the Pipe Masters in the past. What's holding him back from taking a CT win, Ross?
I don't know. There's a little bit of luck that needs to kind of go your way per event to get that win, because Josh definitely has the talent to get a CT win. So it's a bit of a monkey on his back, but I would think coming up in this next event here, he obviously has a great chance. He's still got a pretty big heat up against Kelly Slater, but Tahiti, I love his chances there. We heard B. Durbridge say how he's an absolute maniac in big waves, and Tahiti has that great mix of competing and needing guts because it's a spooky wave.
It's interesting when you're on the top 34, it's almost offensive to call someone an air guy because it doesn't show everything that they can do. They want to be good in every type of condition. One of the best tube riders in the world, but one thing that you always talk about his air game is he does some of the hardest grabs in the world. The stalefish he did at this event was epic to watch. He's done 2 versions of it, but when you go back to Europe last season, Strider, he did maybe one of the best ones ever completed in competition.
Yeah, this was crazy. I was down on the beach actually in the shore break when this thing went down, and he was so high above the lip. It was crazy for him to actually go for a grab in the middle of the whole thing. Beautiful. This boned out, just fully just sweeps all the way around. For him to just stand up out of that and ride out of it, this day just particular, he's right on the sand right there. It's so shallow. And for him just to stay over his board and actually get the completion was a huge accomplishment.
It's that foundation, isn't it? You know, we saw it in that piece that he's has a great appreciation and skills with all the air moves and skateboarding. So he knows all the different grabs and how to get there. And you know, Josh is a pretty athletic guy. He's smaller. He's super agile, so he can get those grabs a lot easier than some of the guys on tour. But it's in his mind. He's already thinking about it.
Yeah, he actually let him get the skunk on me yesterday on the sit-down ping pong table just to give him some confidence going into his next round.
He is very competitive. All of his friends talk about that headspace of his. He doesn't like to lose no matter what game he's playing. But thinking about all those highlights coming to Jeffreys Bay, how does he fit into the Jay Bay story, Ross, when you think about how he approaches the wave?
Well, I think, you know, the conditions have been pretty good for Josh. And I really like how Josh is a pretty smooth operator. He mixes it up with getting kind of stylish on those layback carves. But we all know Josh's strength in smaller waves is how good he is in the air. And that's been really getting him through a lot of these heats so far in Jay Bay. It's been light on shore, side shore, head high. It's almost looking more like lowers than Jay Bay. And Josh Kerr's been taking advantage of that.
Really fun. It's so unpredictable. The king of variety. There's the stale fish once again, Strider.
Yeah. Like Ross was just talking about, though, I think going on in this event, he's going to have to really just hammer the rail and kind of make it look like he's got some weight in the turns, because I don't think that we're going to be going through the air with the amount of wind that we're going to be looking at for Friday, Saturday.
We see him do that layback off the top, sometimes for his cars, a lot of big finishing moves and picking together some of the best waves of his heat, something he referenced in Fiji, being on the better waves instead of just kind of going on his instincts on the fly and trying to free surf.
That's a good call. And I think growing up and kind of looking for those certain sections that are good for airs, you can be guilty of, you know, going on smaller waves on closeouts. But at Jay Bay, you know, again, you're going to get exposed if you don't have the best wave of the heat. You know, it's a huge advantage, especially if you're where you sit. So it's going to be a big test for Josh up against Kelly, who's, you know, got so many years under his belt. He's got that experience of where to sit.
You can tell he's surfing with a lot more confidence at this event than he has so far this season, with a very slow start, being 27th in the world. So he's fired up to compete. He said his world title shot is out. That was his goal at the start of the season. And we look at his matchup. It is a heavyweight matchup, taking on 11-time world champ Kelly Slater. And looking at the previous history, Kelly with 4 wins, Kersey with 2. One of those wins for Kersey cost Kelly his 12th world title chance when Parko ended up winning the Pipe Masters that season. Kersey coming into play against Kelly. What do you expect from him to take down the wind, Strider?
Well, like I said, he's going to really have to get that momentum, that rail. He's going to have to do a lot of weight work almost on the face. I think it's going to be a battle of surfing, though. I really do. I think we're going to see enough waves to where it's not just going to be the best wave. I think that the waves are going to come, and we're going to see these guys kind of go blow for blow, and you know, it's going to be on the open face, and we're going to see if Kersey can do it.
I mean, when you look at the matchup, Ross, one of your best friends you grew up competing with, Kelly Slater, the greatest surfer ever, and he's been getting 9s. He had the highest combined heat total of round 4. Does he have that kind of mojo once again where he's going to take down the whole field?
It's a good question. Here's been the kind of the smoking gun for Kelly and why he hasn't been able to get a win in the last few years. He's had some great free surfs. His surfing has been more than relevant with all the guys that have been winning and getting all the success, but then he can't put it together on a consistent level, and that's the key for him. But for Josh, I think he just has to keep his mind on his own surfing. If he tries to get into a power battle with the rail with Kelly, that's going to be tough. It'd be the same thing for Kelly if he tried to get into an air battle with Josh. So they just got to go out there, stick to the basics, and get the best waves.
Really looking forward to that matchup, quarterfinal number 2. We'll really focus on Kelly Slater, the greatest surfer of all time, and will he win again? We'll find out after this.
got soul, you got power, baby. Life is love, love is soul, and soul is power. Soul, power, soul, power, baby.
Good morning. Welcome back to Dawn Patrol here at the J-Bay Open. The contest called off for the day, but we're getting very close to running the final 6 heats to crown a champion here in 2016. Joe Chappelle, Ross Williams, Strider Wasilewski, breaking down quarterfinal number 2. We talked about Josh Kerr being novelty boy, as his friends call him. He can do anything that he wants to do, and he's very competitive. So he's backing himself against the greatest surfer of all time. Kelly Slater, what a career that both of you guys got to witness in the water and out of the water on land. You got to see what he's going through different world titles. Coming into this event, 26th in the world. That's kind of the biggest thing that you notice on this profile, Ross.
Yeah, it's crazy. Kelly Slater's 44 years old, so he's been around for a minute. It's pretty crazy, and he's still relevant. That's the thing we talked about, how his surfing is still there. So even though he is getting older, he's still surfing beyond well enough to get a victory, and you can see some of the stats there the last few years, but he hasn't had a win in a few years. So it's I think the main culprit for Kelly is when you get older, you tend to get a little bit slower, but Kelly he's still looking fast on the wall, but I think for him, it's everyone's catching up, whereas in the 90s, he was pretty much just slapping us around the place and having his way, but now everyone's kind of caught up, and you can't afford to show up to events a little bit late, and you got to practice and get the job done.
Well, you look at that graphic, and the big thing was 2013, he had a shot at a world title. 2014, he had a shot coming into pipe at a world title. And 2015 was another interesting year where he was winless that season as we wait for him to win again. So that's why Strider makes the conversation so interesting. We're critiquing his form, but last couple of seasons, he's still in the talk for the world title run.
I mean, he's looking really good, like you talked about. He's had some great free surfs. I think it's not like he's forgotten how to surf, like he said. He's surfing so good, but I think his competitive instinct was off a bit. And I think, you look at who's won events. He's like Seabass has won an event. Wilco's won 2 events. He's surfing just as good as those guys, I think. He just needs to get that competitive instinct back and maybe just find himself a little bit of a flow through the events. And I feel like, for me, this is one of those events for him. The next event as well, Tahiti. We thought he was going to do it in Fiji, but he fell short.
Such an interesting topic. Does the Jeep leaderboard really showcase who the best current surfer is in the world at that certain time? Kelly Slater, 11 world titles, 54 CT wins as he looks for a breakthrough win here in 2016. More on the greatest surfer of all time coming up next here on Dawn Patrol.
soul, you got power, baby. Life is love, love is soul, and soul is power. Soul, power, soul, power, baby.
Welcome back to Dawn Patrol. You're watching the J-Bay Open, stop number 6 of the Samsung Galaxy Championship Tour. The contest called off for the day, but promising signs on the forecast for potentially tomorrow to see Kelly versus Josh Kerr. Remember, Kelly has to get past Kersey, get past John Florence on that top side of the draw to put himself in a final position to get all the way into a spot where he could win an event. What's his toughest road there with Josh Kerr and John Florence, Ross?
Well, I mean, obviously he's got to take care of business in his first heat when we start, but John's going to be tough to beat. You know, John's one of those guys that's really comfortable using his rail. He's fast, he's fluid, and then if for some reason the wind gets a little funky town, John's going to be comfortable in the air too. So I think John's kind of a sneaky guy. He could just kind of cruise right through and get the win.
Have you seen a lot of changes in growth from John Florence as far as heat strategy and using his priority this year, Strider?
Oh, yeah, he's changed his game completely, and I love it. You know, he's competing. He's not just out surfing, and that's, you know, something we just talked about. To win, you have to compete. You know, the best surfer in the world might not win every heat because of that, and the reality is if you're going to go out into these heats, you have to have that dog-eat-dog thing, and me and Ross were talking about this morning about you know, Julian Wilson looks like the best surfer, the most informed surfer out here, but he's coming up against a guy who's just a tough competitor. He's an animal. He's just as tough as they come in the water. So, you know, is he going to be tougher than Julian Wilson? Who knows? But, you know, with that top side of the draw, I feel like Kelly can win this contest. I feel like he's got the game on the rail, and I think he's got the competitive prowess to do it.
Yeah, you said it early. Kelly's going for the victory. Ross, can he get it done?
I kind of think Mick Fanning's going to be the regulator in this event, though. He's going to keep everyone in check. He's looking better than ever.
Bottom half of the draw is deadly with Mick, Julian, and also the Brazilian Storm. We're going to take off for the rest of the day. We'll join us tomorrow at 7:30 for Dawn Patrol. This copyrighted event broadcast is produced by the World Surf League for broadcast around the world and may not be retransmitted, reproduced, rebroadcast, or otherwise distributed or used in any form without the written consent of the World Surf League.